Quinoa, and this is the company which are one of the major company who started quinoa cultivation from the year 2013. If you know, quinoa was declared International Year of Quinoa was declared in 2013. And after that, central government had started the project called Ananta. Uh, After that, we came across the seeds from Southern America. Typically, the best seeds of quinoa, they came from Peru and Bolivia, where they have been traditionally cultivated from last 5,000 years. Once we started cultivation, so there are challenges in terms of adopting to a new country, new climate, new weather, new soil condition. The government was keen to start cultivation of quinoa due to various reasons. One of the major thing was it's a hardy crop, which requires very less water, less nutrition, but able to give the very high quality of protein content. And that's why they chose Anantapur district to start cultivation. So that was a pioneer product that we launched in 2013 and 14. That was a trial production happens with the government and many companies. After the initial trial, basically we are from Rajasthan, and we felt like after having a discussion with the scientists and the international team that there are various climates available in India, wherein apart from the water scarcity, the climate also plays a typical part in quinoa cultivation. So we took it a point to start trials across 7 to 8 states in India. That's starting from Rajasthan, MP, Gujarat, UP, including the Sikkim, the the snow-fed areas of Sikkim, the high altitudes area, apart from the typical Tamil Nadu, Hyderabad, and Telangana. 2014-15, the initial success across these categories proved that Rajasthan area was more suitable in terms of the productivity per acre. And that was mainly because the climatic conditions here, what quinoa requires is dry winters. Definitely, quinoa requires less water, but it's not like that, it doesn't require it. So if we say, if we just compare it with the wheat that also cultivated during the same time, quinoa we harvest it's a rabi crop, we harvest it in the month of Feb and March. That time also the wheat crop arises. The water requirement, if you're going to compare with wheat, it's I think 60% of the wheat that is required. So minimum 3 water cycle it requires, or 4 if you want to, and that will do the purpose. So it's typically a 120 days to 180 day cycle of quinoa. What I'm sharing you right now are there are so many changes happen from last 10 years in quinoa cultivation. The initial seed quality was from international variety, and those were the mother seeds. That means they're able to cultivate themselves once we harvest them. Over the years, we partnered with KVKs across the states, help farmers understand the process of cultivating quinoa. We initially experimented with every variety of crop practices in terms of spreading it out, lining, and even the drip irrigations were followed, the mass irrigation and everything around it. Later on, we came across that the quinoa right now requires 3 to 4 cycles of water. It's very easily cultivated, not much of the things required. The only major challenges with quinoa during cultivation is the weed. Uh, if you know botanically also, some scientists called quinoa itself a weed. It came from a spinach family. So it's very hardy plant to grow into it. So what we require is the spacing between the quinoa plants and also some weeds that we can manually or through weedicides we can do that. But currently, even till last 10 years, we have not been required to use any weedicides currently. Only before last year, there was a challenge of some black widow, wherein we have to use pesticides. Otherwise, quinoa itself is a crop It doesn't require much of the pesticides also. What's important for the farmers that the cost of cultivation is very low that way. If you're going to compare it with the same crop or any other crop that cultivates in the same time frame, so it's a very low cultivation cost. At the same time, there are certain areas in Rajasthan and many areas where there are challenges of nilgai. So on the birds and pests. Quinoa is a plant wherein it has got a layer of saponin. The quinoa seed, there's a bitter layer of saponin to it. And because of that, the pests and the animals are not attracted to eat it. And that's one of the good reason that uh, it's very comfortable to cultivate quinoa in a barren land, much not protected, only require protection during early harvest, early cultivation period. After that, once it's mature, after 100 days, so the things becomes more comfortable and easy to cultivate. Uh, Quinoa, because I say it's required, it has got a saponin that's bitter in coating, which even animals doesn't eat. That means after harvesting, it requires the removal of saponin itself for human consumption. We use traditional machines for harvesting, so not technical about it. The plant, I think, if you can come across the internet, it's very beautiful in color. So it's very uh, keenly used. Right now, there are not alternative uses of the leaves of the quinoa, but these leaves are also very good in protein content. So there are some trials happening across the world wherein they are thinking of using quinoa leaves for any other purposes. But still, the metrics are not viable enough to harvest, but the trials are underway to do that. After harvesting of quinoa, we came across that there are three variations in quinoa. One is a color. During last 10 years, because the mother seed has gone diluted over the years, that seed size of quinoa is reduced. Initially, there are varieties we called bold and then we called regular. So there are two seed size that is traditional in practice right now in marketing terms. Bold means any size that is 1.8 mm and above, and anything that is below 1.8 mm is called regular size. In international market, only the bold varieties are more popular rather than the regular variety. But from last 3-4 years, we have been partnering up with some export market and the wholesale market across the world, wherein they are actually interested in Indian grown quinoa variety, which is smaller in size. We come across the use cases wherein they are using it. So once we harvest the quinoa, the seed need to go through the saponin removal process. So it's the proprietary system that we developed over the years. It's a 7-step process wherein the farm waste got removed. The saponin powder has to be removed. The saponin, it's removed mechanically, it's roughly 95%, but still 5% of saponin is need to be removed through washing and drying itself. So that's where the intensity of labor and things are required. The quinoa is very fast germinated if soaked very on a high time. Because of these reasons, the washing and drying requires some mechanical precisions. But once we do that, the quinoa is ready for consumption. Quinoa, why it's important for the world to know about quinoa? Because for vegetarians, quinoa is the only grain on earth which has got complete protein. That means for vegetarians, if they're not eating anything non-veg, this is the only source of protein that is complete in itself. So they don't need to mix it. So wherein, second, apart from the quality of protein, the content of protein in itself very high. Compared to wheat, which has got a protein of 10 to 12%, quinoa's got a protein of 16 to 17%. And that's where it sits better for the palate. Third, it's got very high fiber, very easy to digest. And because of that, it doesn't increase your insulin levels. And these are the reasons quinoa is a favorite among the diabetes in the world. There are a lot of research happening around how to use quinoa for mitigation diabetes within India also and outside world also. Fourth, quinoa is gluten-free. That means the people with celiac diseases, they are easy to consume quinoa into it. And the best part about quinoa is this, in our case, the entire farming routine doesn't get involved with mixing with any of the wheat or the gluten varieties. So right now, India is producing gluten-free quinoa very comfortably. Once we got the quinoa grain into place, now comes how we want to market it. So in terms of marketing, we need to understand what are the use cases. Like I example said, the quinoa after processing is very good for protein content for vegetarians. Quinoa cooks like rice. That means if any people want to adopt quinoa, it's very easy for them to either replace rice or complement rice with quinoa. That way, the boiling time, the taste and aroma and the satiety level of after eating rice and quinoa is equally same. So it's very easy and adoptable for people to start consuming quinoa. And if we figure that out, we understand the entire Indian market is our client, including South and North. After quinoa grain comes how we want to uh, market it across the category beyond grain, because once we go into the value added, that's where the margins are there. That's where the people will start adopting quinoa in a better way. The second way was quinoa need to get milled. Currently, there is a concept called cold milling, wherein the flour doesn't get heat up beyond a certain degree. It stays at a room temperature at the time of milling itself. And what does it do? It helps in maintaining the quality of protein available in the quinoa. It doesn't got deteriorated. So that's the best part. And once you got quinoa grain and quinoa flour, now the sky is the limit in terms of creating value-added products. So right now in India, there are many categories of ready to cook and ready to eat variables available in quinoa. In terms of ready to eat, like we have got quinoa chips, quinoa khakra, quinoa mithai, quinoa puffs, which are roasted and fried also if you want to. In ready to cook variants, we got quinoa pasta, quinoa noodles, quinoa pellets, that is ready to fry versions. And beyond this, the product development that happens with quinoa, so it's very easily, blendable with any other traditional millets that we have been doing it. In terms of positioning quinoa, in terms of marketing it to the Indian market and the international market, so you need to understand there are three categories of grain available to the world. One is the basic, that is rice and wheat. Second is a millet that is still getting premium from the last 2 years of Indian government marketing it very beautifully. And third is the premium quinoa. And why I'm saying premium quinoa? Because the way people, the HNIs or the upper middle class is adopting quinoa, or the people with diseases or the lifestyle diseases, they are adopting quinoa. So quinoa is actually becoming, right now is not a grain of the masses, but for the classes. That way, there are scope once we have a very good marketing team who can uh, connect with the R&D team to develop the value-added product which these consumers are required. Actually, we can market quinoa in a very better way. Right now, the market is shifting. The human behavior, the taste behavior of the people, consumers are changing. What they want is a cleaner ingredient, healthier ingredient, so that they can live their fast-moving lifestyle. And quinoa fits that in very, very beautifully. These are the things that goes into it. Apart from that, international market also requires two varieties. One that I discussed earlier was the size. Second was color. The quinoa comes in three typical colors. One is white, typically yellowish shade. Second is red quinoa, and third is a black quinoa. The black quinoa cultivation and requirement is very, very minuscule compared to other two varieties. Let's say out of 100% quinoa cultivation and consumption across the world, so 90 to 95% happens for the white quinoa, 5% around happens for the red quinoa, and 1 to 2% happens around the black quinoa. And they are basically used for exotic dishes or in the horeca industry, hotel, restaurants, and caterings. for creating some novelty dishes out of it. That's the second category. And third variety of quinoa that is popular within India and in the exports market is organic quinoa. So there are patches in India, like I said to you, quinoa doesn't require itself pesticide and weedicide to cultivate. That way, the chances of cultivating organic quality of quinoa is very high. Definitely, there are FPOs who are working very hard to bring it to the limelight to, scale quinoa cultivation beyond the requirement. But at the same time, the regular quinoa that has been cultivated in India, it's still matching the IPM level quality for the consumers. So this is where the farmers can actually get benefited if they are having the right farm practices. They can actually cultivate the quality quinoa that the world requires. So that way I can summarize my talk into three categories. One, harvest cultivation of quinoa is a low cost affair. Processing of quinoa is a technical affair. Developing value-added products out of quinoa is the requirement of the masses and the classes. And lastly, the market is actually open to start adopting quinoa on a larger scale. So that's from my side.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful talk. I'll take up the questions now. The first question is, what are the common pests and diseases that affect quinoa and how can they be managed?
Currently, not it's the regular. See, the answer lies in whatever is a local grown variety of pest. 10%, if applicable, will be available on quinoa itself. That means you can use the same pesticide that has been used in that area specifically. So there is no new pesticide that actually want to attack to quinoa itself. So that's not happening because quinoa is pest resilient.
Okay. What are the best performing quinoa varieties suitable for Indian agroclimatic zones?
Right now, like I said, major varieties are white and regular. Size is regular, color is white. These are the best variety that Indian consumers are looking for and very easy to cultivate also. Red varieties is relatively very low in terms of cultivation practices. Why? Because the consumer awareness around red is very low, and also the prices are 3 times high.
Okay. Sir, what is the recommended sowing time and seed rate per acre or hectare?
Ideally, after Diwali or in the month of October itself, you should start planning cultivation of it. And typically, we require half to 1 kg seeds per acre.
Okay. Can quinoa be grown as an intercrop with other commercial crops, sir?
See, we can, because I said quinoa doesn't require much of the water requirement. Whenever we are doing intercrop, that means other crop, quinoa, I said botanically is a weed itself. It's a very hardy plant. So you need to match out that which plant that you are inter-harvesting with. If that gel well, it's good. Otherwise, quinoa by nature doesn't harm the species around it.
Yes, sir. So, what is the typical irrigation schedule for quinoa crops?
Uh, Currently, the same that we have been following for the wheat. So what happens in our area? So there are patches wherein farmers are divided their land into two parts, one for wheat, one is for quinoa. And they typically harvest, the water cycles are remain the same into it. But sometimes what happen, first and second cycle are same. They skip the third cycle of quinoa with the wheat and they go for the fourth cycle itself with the wheat. And fifth cycle if they required, otherwise they also skip it. I'm comparing it with the wheat so that the people know how to cultivate wheat so they can easily relate to the timelines.
Okay. I'll move on to the next question, sir. Just a minute. So, what are the primary cost components like seeds, labor, irrigation, fertilizers, etc.?
Lakshmi, can you repeat the question, please?
What are the primary cost components? Seed, labor, irrigation, fertilizers, etc.
The seed company is very low. Secondly, like I said, pesticides and weedicide we don't use. Fertilizers people have started using currently to increase harvesting. Right now in our area, 1 acre of quinoa is producing around 600 kgs to 1200 kgs of quinoa. 1 acre is equal to 4,000 square meter area, roughly. So there are patches wherein, because of the variety of quinoa, that's one. Second, the land quality, because what happens during the Kharif season, whatever they are harvesting at the time of September, the soil quality remains good. Quinoa being hardy plant doesn't require much of a fertilizer to give you the basic, that is 400, 500 kgs of a material. Even after repeated fertilizer uses, we haven't seen the increase beyond 100 to 200 kgs per acre. So that's again depend upon the farmers, how much quantity that they are consuming into it. Water cycle, as said, it's 3 cycle water cycle. And because it's required one-time weeding itself, after that, it's a no maintenance crop. That way, labor cost is also very low.
Okay. What is the market price range per kg of quinoa, sir? Raw and processed.
Raw is basically marketing courses. It typically range from 30 rupees to 50 rupees for the regular variety. And for the bold and the red varieties are depend upon the market demand. That again range from 70 rupees to 120 rupees.
Okay. What are the profit margins compared to traditional crops like wheat or rice?
See, if you compare wheat versus quinoa, for example, wheat right now, the standard rates are 23, 24 rupees a kg to 25 rupees a kg. And typical quantity that we harvest in a similar acre for wheat is around 1200 to 1600 kgs based on the variety of the wheat. And that same land can produce 800 kgs of quinoa with the range of 35 to 40 rupees average over the after harvesting, there is a month of Feb to April. The rates typically range from 30 to 50 rupees. So we are assuming last 4 to 5 years, the range are typically moving around 40, 45 rupees. That way, if you are cultivating wheat versus quinoa, so definitely you are going to earn 25 to 30% more in quinoa. At the same time, the labor costs and labor management is also low. So that's also the added advantage for you.
Okay. Sir, is there access to subsidies or government support for quinoa cultivation?
In terms of state or central government, so there is no structured support is available. But what we have been doing, like we have been working with KVKs, and those KVKs have been trained to how to do the best practices. So that's still a evolving zone for government. We have been trying to include quinoa into the notified category, because currently even harvesting of quinoa, you want to store them in a warehouse and get warehouse receipt for funding. It's still not available with the schemes available for quinoa itself. So things are still moving on a lower pace. But yeah, KVKs can help you definitely.
Okay. What value-added products can be made from quinoa?
Like I said, there are two categories, ready to cook and ready to eat. Ready to cook means you require cooking. It's pre-cooked. For example, we can do pasta, we can do noodles, we can do pellets which are ready to fry. Everything that's required in that category. Apart from that, for ready to eat, we got quinoa flakes, quinoa puff, like kurkura if you want, or if you like poha you want. So you can do that. Quinoa chips, quinoa khakra, quinoa namkeen. quinoa bhel. So there are a number of varieties you can think of. My strategy is simple. You just want to replace wheat and rice with quinoa and start developing the products. That's the first base of, creating the products out of quinoa. So it's a very simple recipe, simple products to start experimenting early on. Why? Because we have been working with millets earlier, and millets are also gluten free, and so is the quinoa. So whatever blending techniques, what is the cooking techniques we require, or the taste buds are required, we have expertise around it already. So what we need to do is start replacing the traditional or might be like over processed ingredient like maida or whole wheat flour with quinoa, so that the people can have a healthier options available to it.
Okay. What certifications are needed to market quinoa effectively, sir?
They are same for any food product or agri product that you have been marketing. For exports, the same APIDA registration and FSI. In India itself, if you are to develop the product and market it, FSI is the only requirement, apart from the local legal requirement. So nothing extra that we are looking for quinoa specifically. Yeah, but if you are thinking that we want to sell gluten-free quinoa, that way there are certified agencies who will verify that your quinoa is gluten-free or not, or your entire processing of quinoa, starting from harvesting, processing, storing, and value-added production is gluten-free or not. That's also one of the things that you can ask for. And thirdly is the organic certification if you are going for organic variety of quinoa.
Okay. What are the challenges in marketing quinoa in regions unfamiliar with it, sir?
First thing, for example, if you know, nobody know about oats very early on. It's only recently from last 10-15 years that we know about oats. So like that, quinoa is a new for Indian market, and it's also not a native of Indian farmers. It will require its due diligence, due timeline for people to adopt quinoa into their lifestyle or day-to-day consumption patterns. So it's going to start slow, but early adopters we need to identify. For example, the people who are into lifestyle changes, facing lifestyle diseases like diabetes, or the people who are into celiac. At the same time, because quinoa is very high fiber, it's very good for your and high protein. It's very good for the recovery. So these are the early adopters we need to find. And based on that, we need to educate the consumers around them why it's important to adopt quinoa very early on.
Okay. What inspired you to focus on quinoa as a core product, sir?
That's an interesting question. I myself is a chartered accountant by profession, and I have been into different business, and I want to start or enter into the food business. And we were very actively pursuing food business and started with dairy farming and polyhouse farming in 2012. And once the opportunity of quinoa we identified, and once I understand the nutritional benefit of quinoa, it hooked me on. See, I am a vegetarian, and I know the challenges we face in terms of ingredient list. But quinoa I found the mother of all grains. Why? Because high quality protein, very high fiber, easy to cook, easy to adopt. These are the things which are actually required across all ages. For example, quinoa can be consumed by a kid starting 2 years. We are working with nutraceutical companies who are working on developing formula for the kids. So this is what the strength of quinoa. The quality of protein of quinoa is all apart from food industry, it's very good for the hair care and skin care industry, wherein the high quality protein is required, and quinoa can actually adopt to these formulations also. So my interest in quinoa is very clearly about the potential it holds for India, and India can become the global supplier of quinoa in coming decade, because people across the world have started shifting to quinoa already, including hospitals, schools. the people who are having an income of upper middle class or still middle class in India across the world, they started adjusting their dietary patterns because of the health challenges to quinoa, because quinoa came across very light to digest, very easy to cook, and with all the best qualities available to it. These are the qualities of quinoa that's actually getting me motivated.
Okay, that's very interesting, sir. Sir, do you directly cultivate quinoa or source it from contract farmers?
So it's a mixed model that we have been working. We have got our own farms, and we have got our own farmers to whom we supply seeds and get into the buyback arrangement with these guys. And third is definitely a contract farming also that we mass adopt.
Like, do you support farmers in giving them training on how to cultivate this?
So currently, initially from I think 2012 till 2013, 14 to 2017, 18, we have been actively involved with the farmers. But currently, we are not actively involved directly with the farmers, but the team that handled and the farmers that we trained already. So they are the people who are actually, can be helpful, and we can connect with those farmers with your audience if they actually want to interested how to adopt cultivation of quinoa, including seeds variety, including the farm practices, including because the quinoa, if you know, it's not a very mass available product for farmers. So they need to have a APMC market or a mandi nearby to sell it. So what we have developed over the years is like we have developed 2, 3 good mandis in Rajasthan. And those are the reasons farmers are being supported by where to sell their produce. Because quinoa can't be consumed directly by the consumer. It needs to get processed. That means farmers can't sell directly quinoa to the consumer. They need to sell it to the people who can clean or process the quinoa first and then can only sell to the consumer. If you got a contract farming with those manufacturers, it's good for you. Or if you can connect with the APMC market to sell your produce, that will be viable for you. Otherwise, once you harvest the quinoa, if there is no option to sell or available place to sell, it's going to be a lot of trouble for farmers.
Okay. So you help in buyback also, sir?
Yeah,
Like
we do
when,
that.
okay. What processing technologies do you use to make quinoa is consumer ready?
Like I said, there are several step processes, which typically there are farm waste removal, saponin removal, that is through mechanics. And third is like washing the balanced saponin. And lastly, the drying and cleaning and sorting of the quinoa. These are the standard processes.
Who are your primary target markets, sir? Like domestic consumers or export markets or both?
See, for quiz quinoa, we have been working extensively with B2B and B2C category. For example, currently we have been working with big marketing companies like Haldiram's, Indigo Airlines, PVR Cinemas. In South, we have been working with Kyofit, Mahalakshmi Sweets, and there are Third Wave Coffee. So there are a number of people who are being our consumer. Apart from that, we have been actively involved in exports of quinoa as a grain. And that's also we are actually shipping in a good quantities currently.
Mm. What is the average income increase for a farmer associated with uh, you people, sir?
In our case, it's like 25% is what we have been seeing over the years.
Okay.
But again, depend upon the metric because see, for farmers, for our farmers that we develop ourselves, remember, we need to educate farmers from the ground zero. Even they were hesitant to even try new seed on their land because it might impact their productivity or so because of that reasons. So initially we took very hand-holding approach with the farmers, give them a good amount of money to buy back, train them thoroughly. And we had done that initial 4 or 5 years of quinoa cultivation. But over the years, these challenges have been overcome once quinoa got popular and the farmers understand the cultivation practices themselves. So yeah, that's what the idea.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We have now completed the round of questions on behalf of agricultureinformation.com. We like to thank Mr. Manish Goyal for the talk and for answering the question. This meeting will now be closed.
Thank you, man.
You're most welcome, sir.